Yesterday we had some pretty quick games. 2 3-0s. No fun. No fun. Well, it's still fun. It's Overwatch. We're here with Contenders Korea, the Fall Series, Day 2. And we're hoping for a little bit longer of a day. 2 more games coming at you. That's myself and LaFawn giving you all the action.
And, I mean, what better a way to kind of just ease us into the rest of the group stages, which I have to admit is not a lot of time left, right? We are in a bit of a truncated season overall, so as we get through today, less than half the season left. So that's going to be an exciting stuff to get through as we get started. Let's talk about the games right off the rip.
Not true. There's 2 weeks left.
2 weeks? Grand finals
this week and next week.
Yeah, that's halfway.
Right, but there's 2 more days. There's 4 days. That's not half. Right. That's a quarter, LaFawn. Get your math right. You were struggling with math earlier today. Into
the games off for the rip first. And you know, let's just get into this into the teams that we have at our disposal, because this is good. You know, you talk about interesting games. We already saw one of these teams play yesterday, and now they get to go against arguably one of the top, or the expected top teams in this group. And so Runway kind of being expended for LEAMICS.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it is a pretty tight season here. We do have just a few short games each team will play. Well, I guess for LEAMICS, half their regular season will be done. So you got that at least, because they only get 4 games in the group. So you get just a little bit out of that one, LaFawn. But in general, no.
All right. Well, let's zoom out. Let's zoom out. I'm gonna get roasted today. Group stage is in. You know, as we get set. This is gonna be really interesting talking about it though, because placing first in your group, both A and B, is critical, because you get your bypass immediately into the playoffs. You get seeded into the bracket. Critically though, you get to bypass that first round, so you immediately head into the second round. And as we can see right there, that single elimination bracket, group 3 and 4 is that first place position. Everyone else will have to play through round 1. Of course, after all is said and done, grand finals will happen at the end of the season on LAN in the WDG Esports studio to crown our champion here for the 2023 Fall Series of Korea. And Paul, I mean, you know, very exciting this season because we have returning teams from the Overwatch League knockouts now playing back in Contenders, and so I mean the status of play has been elevated, I think, compared to even say the last season of Contenders.
Certainly. I mean, yesterday it was our ex-knockout teams facing off against each other, and a couple of WDG Open teams facing off. Poker Face very much getting the better of Panthera. Panthera looked a little lost. Hopefully they're going to take a day or 2 off, readjust to the new meta. We are on a live patch. Keep in mind, folks, very Zarya heavy, but teams are still settling in what they might like to play. And we saw that in Panthera yesterday. JNGK and LEAMICS, though, they were full sending it on the Zarya. No surprises. The WDG Open was also on this current patch, so they're pretty comfortable on that. Gonna have to be very comfortable, LEAMICS, as they didn't do too hot yesterday. And now, like you said, going up against a very scary team. Dreamers, you could argue, are going to be the best, maybe second best. They did lose to Poker Face. What scarier teams in this entire season rolling in today? And this is our first, like, you know, knockout team versus WDG Open matchup.
Yeah, and then, of course, later on today in that second game of our doubleheader, FM takes on Revival, 2 open teams once more. Though FM, having been around a little bit as a roster, made some changes. Revival stepping forward, trying to make some noise themselves. I do believe that was the 4th and 5th seed coming in from the WDG Opens. But ahead to our first game of the day, Dreamers versus LEAMICS FC. Dreamers a bit of a fan favorite, it must be said, you know, due to their tenure and their experience, the stuff that they were able to accomplish in Contenders, in the Owl knockouts, and how this team kind of performed. I mean, I remember when Dreamers was, you know, in about a year ago, where they were kind of struggling through Contenders. All of a sudden, they turn it around and become one of the foremost performers, you know, from the Contender squads. As we take a look at the roster, and keen-eyed among you will notice that there is a new tank player.
Yeah, absolutely. Liga is off, rumored to heading to some greener pastures. We'll see where Liga ends up, but Jasmine stepping in here to fill some of the off-tank roles. We've talked about Jasmine a lot in Contenders Korea. One of the newer tanks when it comes to, like, you know, he's not Dreamer, he's not Liga. He's been playing at the Contenders level for a little under a year now,
Yeah.
but he's got a really wide hero pool. So I think this is smart pickup for Dreamers. It's intelligent for them to bring him in. On the other side of things, we saw LEAMICS yesterday. You'll recognize them. I mean, across the aisle in the tank role, Grace. It was some heavy talk last week at the seeding show. Well, we'll 3-0 sweep everybody. Win a map yesterday. So not the best start for the trash talk, but it's still fun to watch this team play.
And I think, we talk about Jasmine being a sort of do-it-all tank, one of the new generation of tank players in Overwatch. I think Grace is of that ilk as well, right? And, while historically has been sort of that off-tank role, I think has expanded the hero pool to include, the Junker Queen, we saw Zarya yesterday as well from Grace. Now the question is, can you put it all together? It doesn't get easier from LEAMICS, and unfortunately for them, this is, we joked a little bit earlier about the season kind of running a runway. This is almost a must-win for LEAMICS, or at least, at the very least, you need to put on a solid performance against an expected top team who are reintroducing a new tank, right, in a new meta, and a meta that you've already had competitive playtime on. If you lose this one in the 3-0 fashion, it's feeling a little bit awkward for LEAMICS heading into, the back half of their group play.
I mean, it's already feeling a little bit awkward when you look at Group B. I mean, you have Dreamers, who they're going up against today, JNGK, who's the only other WDG Open team, and then Euphoria, who used to go by Rhodes. They rebranded a little bit. And then SPG, Simprissa Gaming. That's a scary group. LEAMICS, they didn't get the one win against the other WDG Open team. They're not going to have to pull off quite a few upsets, at least 2 out of the 3 for the teams coming back from the knockouts. So they either need this win today, or they need to figure out a way to take down SPG and Euphoria. We're starting it all off on Lijiang Tower. I believe this is where we saw LEAMICS play yesterday as well. It was admittedly somewhat close on the 2 rounds that we saw here, but they failed to put it together.
Well, I mean, the big thing, too, is that they just were a little too slow with their fight approach yesterday. And sure, while the points were close, the map was close, and I did make that argument yesterday, the big problem is that they didn't take very many fights. So a lot of the times we actually on the first round, right, it came down to, like, basically the first ultimate fight, meaning where the first one where every team has multiple resources available for them, happened in last fight, because of the fact that LEAMICS really weren't doing a whole lot to get forward in that round. So looking for a much higher tempo from LEAMICS today.
And as we load in here, I'm really looking at the DPS core of LEAMICS to play something stable. No surprises from Dreamers. They're playing what exactly we expect to be the meta. Got Top Dragon on the Genji. Ooh, Top Dragon Genji is very fun to watch. I'm excited for that one.
And I mean, sad Sojourn too.
A very different approach here. Cyrus just gets bodied by Top Dragon.
Ooh, that is not an auspicious start for LEAMICS, it must be said.
Oh my word, Top Dragon.
And I mean, listen, Top Dragon. Yeah, the thing about Top Dragon is this is a player that you and I talked about in A-Sides of Korea way back when. Right,
like a year ago.
Yeah, coming back into the AL season, that just is about to end shortly. That he was a player that we expected to see in the Overwatch League. So this is a performance that is expected of his caliber, and with that, Dreamers easily take first capture.
Yeah, it would have been quite a few teams, in my opinion, that could have used Top Dragon during their rougher year this year, but that's neither here nor there. Instead, we got to focus on LEAMICS. Trying to get back into the mix here. It's hard to push across that bridge with Orisa. No Lucio either. And meanwhile, across, Donna goes overextend. And actually, Top Dragon not able to pin that down either. Everybody throwing stuff into Amir, but Amir getting pocketed makes that easy. Now with an Amp Matrix, LEAMICS get across the bridge. And Dreamers, I think they played with their food a little bit too much. This food kicked back. Sure, Missing gets one with an Amp Matrix, but I think he's going to wish he saved that.
Actually, hold on. This is the spirit. Baptiste? Okay. Oh. With Imperial coming in, a very young player, by the way. Imperial, very, very young. Comes in with a cleanup on the sports. What happens there, Emperor is actually the focus of the last fight, but the healing pylon from Osiris kept in the corner, sneaky good at healing. If you don't take it down, it will be able to pocket through, and that's exactly what happened, and the reason why LEAMICS are able to get percentage. That being said, the turnaround is rough, because that's an uncontested first pick.
Nice start from Stad. Stad back on the Sojourn, too. Stad's been playing pretty solidly on the hit scan all year, but this is, I mean, a lot of these DPS players in Contenders career, last year they all had to play and learn Sojourn to get into Contenders in the first place. No surprise that Sad is able to get off to a good start here. LEAMICS, they managed to get up to 38%, not too bad, but these staggers at the very end of it here, Grace, just throw yourself off the map, buddy. You're not making it out, you're not accomplishing much else.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about in terms of the tempo play that we need to see from LEAMICS. They're just taking fights way too slowly. Not resetting there is going to put Dreamers at about 60% when this next fight happens, and so Dreamers winning it would put them into last fight territory with a staggered contest. And make no mistake, this is going to be a very difficult fight for LEAMICS to actually close through. Sound barrier for sustain, you obviously have the Dragon Blade, and even if that accomplishes nothing, the Graviton Surge has no response on the opposing side.
Whoa, Top Dragon. Need to be a little bit more careful. Got down to 9 HP there before peeling out. A little bit careful. There's the grab. And it's just, it lands slaughter at this point. I don't know if the Blade was necessary. The Ant Matrix and Blade certainly were not both necessary. But, I mean, with 81% already on the board, hard to imagine Dreamers don't convert this.
And this is that stagger stuff once more. I mean, the round's over, right? It's a formality at this point, barring a miracle heroics.
You don't think the Molten Core can clutch this and kill 5?
I don't think he even gets to the point, I'll be honest with you.
Hey, Overdrive! No. Oh, okay, well, he's walking away now, so no, maybe not. Although the Molten Core is out, and Overtime did get triggered. Grace isn't going to be around to see it through, though, and that Ant Matrix is not in the ideal position. Nah, okay. 138. One pretty solid punish from LEAMICS, but otherwise, Dreamers in pretty comfortable control.
This is the expected performance from round number 1, and you know we've been critical about LEAMICS in terms of their fight selection, their tempo, but make no mistake about it, Dreamers is the favorite team here, and if anything, I think we could be a little bit harder on Dreamers for the fact that they lost that fight because it was a greedy, aggressive play, right?
No, for sure.
And it's not something we've seen from them in the past either, right? When they were playing in the Owl Knockouts, this was not a style they were not willing to play with their food. They just played very cool, very calm, very collected, and I would like to see more of that from them in this contender season, especially because the expectation is for them to make playoffs.
I think there's an argument to be made that I feel very confident about this match, but there's also, I do want to point out, that is a criticism we had of Top Dragon's Genji, specifically last year, when, you know, it was like his Genji versus O2 Blast in finals at points. It goes a little bit far a lot of the times, and can have a habit of overextending. I'm not going to fault him too much for it in this match unless it becomes a really big problem. But that's something to keep an eye on for the season when they go up against some of those heavier hitters in their group. Nissan's actually the first one down here, and that makes things pretty tricky for Dreamers. They can't really step up to the Bastion that Empire is now rocking without the support of their Baptiste. It's just not enough health to go around, and LEAMICS get the first cap.
And I mean, this composition that LEAMICS are running is something that is actually very familiar to all our players because of the Overwatch League setup. That being said, there's the squishy Orisa that is coming to play. The nerfs already making an appearance as Grace is done.
Okay, so not half bad spam there.
Oh.
Soki-chan, actually phenomenal shots. I can't call it spam anymore after he gets Top Dragon in the air like that. Ant Matrix 2 keeping Jasmine on his toes, but
without Grace.
Point in LEAMICS, they don't have a way to really push through this. There we go. Missing finally gone as the grenade does find him. This has been pretty back and forth to start it off, but LEAMICS are finally going to get some confident percentage.
And one thing here, too, is that for some reason, Dreamers are very content with face-checking a Bastion, which is curious to me because that is where the Bastion excels, right? And you're not even getting the bubbles in play, so it's not a lot of value. But now here's where LEAMICS gets tough, because again, the Graviton, the Blade's coming in. You need to win this fight, and you need to get resources away from Dreamers if you want a real chance to extend this round in your favor.
Oh, man, Taylor just getting around that corner in time, missing. Oh. And Empire actually trading there. I've never seen a Baptiste and a Bastion trade. There's the Blade. It forces out the beat. That should give Dreamers some tempo here. If they can get a grab off, Jasmine needs to live. Okay, just barely. Dada's got his back. Amp up those heals, but the beat doesn't drop. Dreamers trying to save that ult. And meanwhile,
I don't hate this play from LEAMICS, though. As you said, it's just the beat left from them, and despite Dreamers spending so much, they haven't confidently won this fight yet.
Yeah, there we go. Now the beat to engage as Dreamers were waiting off their respawns, but they only get the one out of that. Terra Surge doesn't really do much except keep Grace up long enough so that the immortality field can buffer, and LEAMICS have to lick their wounds.
Yeah, I mean, now you're walking in with a Molten Core and Ant Matrix, and this is where I think things can be a little bit more difficult, because layering it down the point, all of a sudden, this actually becomes a threat, as opposed to the last round where it was sort of a panic ultimate at the end of the round. So keep an eye out here on Soki-chan, who is going to have to be a difference maker.
Whoa, Dada, how'd we end up there with such low health, skirting above him? Oh, and that's an Ant Matrix. Shouldn't peek that one, sad. Look, you guys were just playing on a meta very similar to this. I'm a little bit surprised that you forgot how much damage Bastion does through an Ant Matrix.
I do like that Molten Core, though. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to point at the Bastion and be like, yeah, Molten Core, or sorry, Ant Matrix through, so much damage. But the Molten Core basically ushered everyone into a position where it excelled or added extra value to that. And now, all of a sudden, LEAMICS, with that pickoff onto Sad, going to be about to force last fight territory. And you have to wonder, the Dreamers just feel a little disorganized in their approach, not really focusing down at targets.
Yeah, no, this has not been ideal. Even this grab, I mean, eventually Top Dragon gets there, but most of Dreamers were back, and Top Dragon, again, found before his blade, going a bit too far forward, and Ant Matrix dumped in. That's 2 ults there for Dreamers to try and secure this. They will get the flip over at 93% and push LEAMICS back, but it's not quite as clean as we might have hoped.
No, it really isn't. And now you have to put through... I mean, even all the damage that you do have, it's going to be against Beat and against the Meteor Strike, or sorry, against the Bastion's Artillery Strike. Well,
whoa, he's got it out for missing, dude. He does not like missing in the slightest, especially after that trade. Jasmine already up to high charge too. At least able to mostly dodge out of this Ant Matrix this time. Sad with an overclock, peeking the Ant Matrix Bastion with an overclock. Sad, you are playing with fire.
What's weirder though?
This time he doesn't get burned.
What's weirder though is they actually allowed him to walk away with that. They were like, oh yeah, the overclock is more dangerous than our Ant Matrix Bastion.
Oh, here comes the blade. It's not that dangerous, turns out, as Top Dragon gets put down before he even really gets one slash off, and Jasmine stomped into the dirt by the Terra Surge. LEAMICS have flipped it back, and there's not much of a chance for Dreamers to really recontest. Here comes the Molten Core just to make sure Missing and Dada can't even trigger overtime.
This is what we were talking about at the top of this round, and to have it proven so quickly is a little disappointing on Dreamer's side. Just unorganized, not really any target focus. The Dragon Blade had no setup whatsoever, and you know, you're coming in, the turret configuration is still available, so you just get gunned down. And I mean, you have to wonder that maybe Dreamers just feeling a little too strong with their approach.
I think part of it as well is also the enigma. Well, I shouldn't say enigma, but the fickle situation that is Control Center, right? I think that the Orisa Bastion composition is going to succeed there more than anywhere else on Lijiang Tower, right? Even here, you can see that LEAMICS aren't necessarily going to that. We'll see what Soki-chan ends up swapping to.
Okay, not having the Bastion though. Okay, not having the Bastion though means that your Zarya can actually get in a lot more aggressively, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Grace with that nerf to the Orisa is going to be a lot more vulnerable here to the damage that can be laid down.
Grace goes really far.
Ooh, boy.
I mean, I know Orisa is still pretty tanky despite the nerfs, but you gotta be a little bit more careful. Nice shot from in here. Good work there to take down Top Dragon. This has actually been pretty good peel from LEAMICS. They're just slowly kiting Dreamers who really want to get up and in your face, right? Like Jasmine, Top Dragon, these guys want to go forward and fight you head on. Dad now completely stuck and just narrowly slides away to safety, but LEAMICS are going to get first cap again.
That's like the Observer curse on Widow, except it was not a Widow, it's Torbjorn. Soki-chan, which is...
Top Dragon back now. Can he find any prod at? I don't really think so. No, this is difficult.
Oh, nice move.
He's been really aggressive with his big flex. That's a beautiful move from Dada, though. I mean, that should just be the floodgate tearing open without the bad piece. Osiris is going to have a hard time keeping everybody up, and yeah,
still, Jasmine goes down to essentially an isolated Torbjorn. I mean, Dreamers, they want to play sort of this aggressive setup, but they are not supporting each other on the approach. And the thing is, right, to criticize, we saw similar gameplay. We saw the Zarya gameplay from Pokerface yesterday, right, where they would have Spit take the majority of the aggression, but it feels like Dreamers just aren't having that second layer of support that needs to keep the Genji once the bubble and the deflect expire.
That's only like the second bubble I've even seen thrown at Top Dragon, and he wasn't really in the mix of danger. Now, Sad very much up in their face. Yeah, gotta hit the shot. There we go. All right, eventually gets MP here. And the rest of LEAMICS, I mean, that is a bit of an awkward approach, right? Not necessarily the ideal way to deal with a comp that has more vertical mobility than you. Down barrier 2 thrown in from Dreamers. They do lose Jasmine before it really rings out, though. Okay, it'll end up coming out in the wash. Well, Top Dragon stays alive.
All right, just hide behind the pillar. It'll be fine. I mean, it's not a clean fight. Jasmine is the Zarya's biggest issue is having to reset energy too, right? This is even more disastrous because now when this graviton comes out, you have to couple the blade rather than using it rather than just putting damage in from the neutral. And having to use both ultimates is going to mean that last fight territory, LEAMICS actually will have a window back into this map.
Ooh, there we go. Nice hit from Soki-chan. That's going to force Top Dragon to try and pull out the blade and be a playmaker. He can't quite get on top of the Torp, though, and the rest of his team is obliterated by LEAMICS.
Talking about a window back in. Now LEAMICS has an opportunity to take the objective, and with the reset on damage and no other ults, defensively or not, right? I mean, for LEAMICS, you're going to posture Grace to take the brunt of this damage, the Graviton Surge especially, and then you actually have a chance to kind of generate your ult economy back. It's a small window, but it's an opportunity nonetheless.
So much damage, so much! He doesn't get a bubble, he doesn't get any heals, he goes away from the team. Yeesh.
And now Dreamers are caught in somewhat no man's land, right? Like, they're kind of rotating to the point, but they can't actually go there.
Stuck in a 4v5 if they're not careful here. I mean, that wasn't the best place for the pylon, so LEAMICS, as they rotate back around to mid, are going to be a little bit low on healing. Top Dragon has rejoined, and Grace trying to step up, keep the grab out of the mix. Sad will get, I believe, hit off the map by the energy javelin. Yeah. That's good stuff from Grace right there. One of the most dangerous players to worry about in this lobby. Here comes an Ant Matrix and a grab. That is quite a lot of damage, but good healing. No, LEAMICS aren't even going to let Soki-chan drop such a big hitbox in that grab and so much damage to the Ant Matrix, but no conversion from Dreamers at all. And with only 20% left, they're going to be scrambling.
This is really well done from LEAMICS. And I mean, this is what I was highlighting, right? About having your window back in, and now it's all about execution. Jasmine uses the Graviton Surge even through a window. The low energy Zarya just does not have the ability to kind of clean up, and LEAMICS have done a fantastic job of just isolating the forward player of Top Dragon and preventing anyone else from coming in.
And Sat's dead again.
Overclock too.
Better of such a tenured Sojourn. Beautiful Terror Surge forces the immortality field, and even that is only barely enough to keep Dreamers in. They're gonna have to beat with just 4 available. Top Dragon, you need this pickup on Taylor. Okay, eventually gets it. The Molten Core has been laid out, but Dreamers are avoiding it deftly. And by the skin of their teeth, they'll give themselves another chance at this first map.
No, I mean, this is where they should be able to close out the map, because it is it's going to be a haphazard approach. Grace already half HP, dead, and Dreamers will have a blade in the back pocket. Yeah.
All right. Certainly more scrappy than we expected from Dreamers. LEAMICS giving them a very solid fight on map number 1.
And I think this is, LEAMICS said, don't underestimate us coming into this, in that sort of pregame or last week's, a pick situation. I have to agree with them. They won. Or Dreamers won, yes, but LEAMICS is not a force to kind of ignore, and I think trying to play with your food just a tad too much. This is Contenders Korea. The teams here are very, very good. You're not going to come in here and just be able to walk over anyone at all, and for Dreamers, it just felt like they weren't all on the same page, and LEAMICS punished them. Not quite able to take the map away, but coming pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, hard to anticipate that composition, too. We'll have to see what more of the Orisa comes out to play after a break. pretty hotly contested first map, but Dreamers do walk away with it, as we'd expect, not in the fashion we'd expect. LEAMICS, really giving them a fight, have completely abandoned the Zarya that didn't work for them yesterday. I guess Zarya abandoned them yesterday to a degree, and now have just decided to roll themselves back one patch and play the Orisa, Bastion, Torbjorn stuff. We'll see how well that keeps working for them as we go into our map number 2 of Hybrid.
It is, I think, a really curious setup, and I mean, Dreamers vaunted as they are, they have made a pretty key change, right? Jasmine stepping in on the tank role, who is, you know, a new player for them. They haven't had a ton of
big change, especially in this meta,
and also not a lot of time, right? It's a fairly recent pickup, right? Because Liga was playing for them all the way as they were out of knockout, so you know, maybe still needing time to kind of reintegrate with the team, and that does make a kind of aspect of it. However, I will also say that LEAMICS also played much better today in that first map, even punishing a lot of the mistakes that Dreamers were making, right? Sending in their Genji all alone, without resources, without the bubble, and now this is going to be something they have to continue as they head further into series if they want to try and even things up.
Yeah, we go to Midtown here, and don't get me wrong, I am a big fan of Top Dragon Genji. I'd like to see it at some point in this match, because it did not feel very present on our map number 1, or maybe it did with the aggressive style he plays, to put it, you know, nicely.
So I see Top Dragon Genji featured negative in brackets. All right, enough flaming.
This is LEAMICS' pick.
Yes.
Interesting too. Yesterday they picked King's Row after they
Yes.
lost the first map. Of course, again, yesterday they were playing the Zarya. So this tells me they're gonna play more of the Orisa. I mean, it almost worked for them on map number 1, and Midtown leans itself that way more so than King's Row.
And I mean, the other thing too is Midtown is very unique amongst the map pool that we have, in that multiple regions, so not limited to Contenders Korea, but multiple regions in APAC also have chosen to play Sigma on Midtown, especially on first point, right? Which we saw yesterday too in the Poker Face Panthera game, where you know, there was that Iliari brought in. Actually, hey, featured right away. Grayson and Jasmine gonna go directly to Sigma. So I think this is it's again a continuation of the idea that you want to, if you don't feel that you're going to have the efficacy on the Zarya, just get away from it entirely and go to a map that features you know, a composition that is featured nowhere else.
And this is something that both of these tank players have experience with, but Grace much more so. Jasmine is very like new Overwatch 2 kind of try and play everything tank. Grace, a little bit more of the traditional off tank with some main tank now featuring in like the Orisa technically, right? But Grace, right up his alley.
Zod on the Soldier actually is a very interesting pick, because usually we'd see a lot of Sojourn defensively, not a lot of range damage from Dreamers, or more correctly, not a lot of burst range damage, and that might actually end up coming back to haunt them, because LEAMICS, with the amount of healing that is on their backline, is able to get rid of this poke, this sort of extended poke, and just generate ultimates rather than worry about being eliminated.
I'm keeping an eye on Top Dragon too. We did see the Echo yesterday on Midtown defensively. One of the problems it had is it's hard to support. So Top Dragon is going to have to be very self-sufficient here on this defense for Dreamers to hold strong on first. One nice thing about the Soldier 76, it takes care of the Torbjorn turret really well. So at least you don't gotta worry about that annoyance here. Top Dragon nearly dying as he face checks the Torbjorn despite that right-click shotgun coming through. And there he goes, he drops.
I mean, look at the health bars of LEAMICS. Sure, Osiris was really low, but realistically, who is actually threatened by anyone on Dreamers?
I mean, this rotation's pretty free, too. Does Sad know that people are walking up the stairs behind him? No clue. Bit of a comms lapse there from Dreamers. Sad, luckily, fast enough to get away with that. Or get away from that, I should say, just barely. Grace does fall, too, which means that this push from LEAMICS probably not too long for this world. Although, as I say that, Sad is missing both falls, so LEAMICS still trying to hang in this. They're throwing in the Captive Sun. Can't make tricks. It's hard to remove Dada and Jasmine from the train. Here comes a prophetic clutch too. Jasmine catching Soki-chan in that one. And that should be this wrapped up. One tick taken though for LEAMICS.
Yeah, half their time make elapsed as well. And it was very expensive for Dreamers, right? That's 3 ultimates that they had to use to just the backliners of LEAMICS, right? Ant Matrix and Captive Sun. And you kind of have to wonder, like, that was not LEAMICS making any tremendous play either. That was sort of just the resources kind of went by the wayside, and then Impure hit an opening shot. And beyond that, Dreamers kind of crumble. So I think this is more of an experience fight win than anything else, where you've kind of been in a staggered fight, and so you know you can win it out. But I don't know that the composition has the strength to actually close a confident win.
Man, already so much being used. Oh, attack visor there? Sad? I mean, that's a bit bold. I suppose you can throw the attack visor. It's not like the highest punch ultimate, and it keeps LEAMICS from pushing, stalls more time away from them as they only have them less than 90 seconds left. A minute 15 now on the clock for them. Quite a few ults too. LEAMICS just have to pull the trigger. This is something we saw yesterday with the Stigma comps here. Attacking is so slow with these compositions if you're not careful. Already Soki-chan down, sure, Data, or Grace does trade it onto Data, but you need a little bit more, and Osiris is completely caught in the alleyway. Missing and Top Dragon mug him.
This feels like a confidence difference right now, right? Dreamers noticing that LEAMICS aren't actually willing to press the go button despite having the ultimate advantage or taking so much space. I mean, Top Dragon and Missin are a hit squad here on the left-hand side of the map from the attacker's perspective, and no one's really pushing them out. And again, LEAMICS not taking advantage of their burst potential are allowing Dreamers to just hold space in the map uncontested.
I mean, Jasmine's basically just been playing left-click simulator around this corner here. Hasn't really had to do much else. Here's the overclock, but it doesn't even get that much space. Jasmine with a solid gravitic flux. I believe he teed up Top Dragon with that one too. Yeah, there's a dupe. Absolutely ensuring that it was Top Dragon going after that gravitic flux. Now he's even trying to take down the enemy. Captain Stun up in the air. Osiris not able to do much, except does get rid of Missin eventually, but it's all too little and all too late unless something goes horrifically wrong for Dreamers here, and they've cleaned it up beautifully. No overtime triggered, and only 41.2% for LEAMICS on their attack.
Really well done by Dreamers, and I mean, experience is such a valuable asset when talking about team's performance, right? And we saw that from Dreamers. There was a very clear moment to me when the map has kind of flipped on its head, and it was that ultimate fight, right? Actually, right here, the fight before this one, where LEAMICS have 3 check marks available to them. Dreamers had nothing, and they just don't use that opportunity. They allow Dreamers to poke and prod their way in, and Dreamers, recognizing that, decided, hey, we can put Top Dragon in this corner, this alley, uncontested, because he's not getting pushed. Sure.
Well, oh, and I was just going to say, after that one time Top Dragon dies at the very beginning, too, you could see Top Dragon always had a, like, it was the buddy system, right? Like, do you have your alley buddy? Yes, Top Dragon did. It was either Sad with the Biotic Field or Missin coming over on the Illari. Somebody was always there helping him.
Adaptation is the name of the game, and, you know, when Dreamers make that, it puts it at, I mean, 41%. It's not a full hold, but it may as well be one, as Dreamers
just need a fuller hold now.
They need a one fight to close this one out.
Fuller hold. It always sounds so dumb to say, but I love it every single time.
It means it's.
I really like this
linguistically
too from Dreamers too.
Yeah.
Because this is so much faster. You get, you know, LEAMICS, we really only saw them take what, 2.5, 3 fights in their 4 minutes. Dreamers will get upwards of 5 if the, I mean, presumably here. It is much faster paced. It is much more aggressive. You give yourself a lot of chances to secure this objective, and already they're right on top of Soki-chan. Missin does fall for this though, and yeah, I mean, you know, with this overheat, Soki-chan's able to peel away, so maybe a bit too aggressive.
Oh no.
Oh my, well, it's not too aggressive if you're trading for supports. Dreamers, the 4 of them do get into a very solid staging ground to siege the objective as well. They are going to have to try and figure out how to get rid of Taylor. That's really Sad and Top Dragon's job. Can they get up there? Or will they just focus on Soki-chan, who's out of LOS of his only support, who's still hanging around? Taylor has to fall as Sad pushes him, and it is pretty darn clean for Dreamers. This is what we wanted to see on map number 1. Here on Midtown, it ain't close. Dreamers get a solid stomp to take away map number 2.
Match point now achieved for Dreamers, and hey, maybe just a warm-up map, right? Didn't get up quite early enough, so you'll take it out in map number 1. A map they did win, might I highlight, so it's not like it was a terrible performance from them. Now, unfortunately for LEAMICS, we are very picky.
You and me, especially.
Yeah. Here comes a line that I dare say I've said before, and I know We head to Flashpoint. It's a map where chaos reigns supreme, more so even than control. Last chance, last opportunity. You have to make something of it. And please, LEAMICS, play faster. We need more fights from you.
I think part of it is just that composition.
Yes.
Right? Sigma is a slow tank. You get Baptiste and Ilyari in the back line. That's slow. You get Torbjorn on attack. That's slow. Really, you are very reliant in that composition on not only one, but theoretically multiple picks coming out, especially with the way Grace approached that, always focusing on the tank fight against Jasmine in main, not rotating around, not trying to assist in Siege. We'll see what Flashpoint holds for us when we come back for map number 3. LEAMICS, you know, these first two games haven't been the 3-0 sweeps in their favor that they were hoping for. It's looking like they might get 3-0 swept twice. But to be fair, they're up against Dreamers, one of the best Contenders teams we've seen all year. So no harm there. The question is, will LEAMICS be able to pull back and give us, you know, a third map that looks more like Control rather than Midtown? Midtown not particularly close. And they're going to have one more chance when we go into Flashpoint.
I mean, the thing about we're heading to with Flashpoint coming in. I will sort of temper the comment on Midtown because they had an opportunity to take it away, right? They had the economy advantage. I think when you're in a position like that and you're kind of losing out a fight, you get in your own head. You're like, oh, is this the perfect play? Instead of let's just make a play.
Sure.
Because when you're so worried about making a play, sometimes you're like, okay, the wrong play might be the one we make, and we've seen that in the past, right? It's not like making the wrong play is going to win you a fight. However, making no play is also a pretty tough place to be. So, I think though Midtown wasn't close, there was the opportunity there. Whereas, I mean, map number 1, they did a great job of being able to hold down Dreamers for a large portion. It came down to one fight, really. So as they head into Suravasa, as we get into the map set of this match, there is, I think, a case where you head back to a style similar to Control where you were close. Maybe you can actually take that fight that you lost and turn it on ahead this time around, now that you've had that experience already.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to get off a slower, more like positional composition here too, right? Either going back to the Zarya that we saw them play on Flashpoint yesterday, or they will instead maybe go back to the Orisa that was working for them pretty well on Control. You know, Orisa did get some nerfs on this patch, but Grace was doing pretty all right with it.
Yeah.
And that Bastion alongside of it really made Top Dragon and Jasmine's life difficult. So I wouldn't hate either of those options, really, as long as LEAMICS are decisive in what they want to do.
On the flip side, for the Dreamers, talking about that Top Dragon Jasmine combo, already in this meta, it's shaping up that if you're sort of flex player, meaning the one who's going to play that aggressive style, isn't getting resources and doesn't actually execute when given those resources, you're going to struggle. We saw that already in this match, where Top Dragon really wasn't getting a ton of bubbles, would go in with the Dragon Blade without much attention. And while we don't expect the Dragon Blade to get kills, right, it's more about a resource trade a lot of the time. If you're just getting shut down, then it's not a resource trade, you've just lost. And we need to see a little bit more from Dreamers about keeping Top Dragon in the middle of the fight rather than on the periphery of it, because that's where SAD wants to operate anyway.
Off onto Suravasa we go. Market will be our first point of contest as per the norm. And Dreamers get a much faster rotation. LEAMICS again playing with Lucio, although the piece we already did work for them on map number 1, so I won't fault them for it just yet, but it doesn't lean into that faster tempo that we've been hoping for from this team. Already Dreamers set up beautifully to completely lock out LEAMICS. And they're going to get that first cap without much of a contest at all here. Osiris needs to be careful. Don't play with knives here. Top Dragon is much more comfortable with them than you are. Data is the first to fall, and Top Dragon, buddy, that's not the most dangerous thing in the room. I'm going to be honest with you, dude.
It was actually a good knockback by Osiris. The jump, which has actually, you know, affected the aim enough that he couldn't clean up and get the turnaround. So, I mean, while Dreamers do get percentage, it feels like they lost the plot a little bit. Not aware of who they were really supposed to be focusing down, and as a result, LEAMICS just play together as a collective and end up with the fight win. So, Dreamers, we criticized them about this in map number 1, and it continues to be an issue. Top Dragon again going in without support, again taken down, and again the fight is over.
Dreamers, they want to just get out of here, but like, where do you go? And Kira's on a perfect angle to pick off SAD. That is another late stagger. Really, you only get one more fight out of this if you're lucky. And now, I mean, I don't think Missin brought his 4-leaf clover along with him today.
And Pierre, also a very young player, by the way. One of the youngest this season of 16. Contenders. Yeah. Tremendous stuff. Poise under pressure.
There we go. Top Dragon will finally get that healing pylon that's been bothering him for a while.
His nemesis vanquished.
Nice Ant Matrix to start this off. Dreamers answer it right on back, and a rail shot does quite a bit of damage, but it's just a body, so Sox-chan is able to tank it. Grace not having too much fun, but with SAD the first one to fall here. An immortality field, tons of healing for LEAMICS, and Osiris coming up the back. I mean, Mistin is in a heap of trouble with Osiris right on top of him, and Top Dragon struggling to even get rid of a Baptiste. At least Mistin will take down Grace, but Pierre's got an overclock, and Top Dragon doesn't have enough health to make that happen. Beautiful first stuff for LEAMICS.
Remarkable there from LEAMICS. And I mean, this is, a lot of it is coming down to the fact that they're identifying that resource trade, right? Top Dragon has now been taken down several times without support. There we saw Top Dragon on a flank trying to fight a Baptiste without anyone to kind of back him up, and with that, LEAMICS just win the frontline war, and that gives them that first round and the early lead here on Suravasa.
And because they get that first point too, even though they're playing a technically slower composition, they won't lose out on positioning. Going over to our second objective, and Pierre set up nice angle. Top Dragon, it's fine, he's Genji. Okay, there's a grab. We have a blade, try and follow it up. No immortality field. Top Dragon whips though, and has to spend the entire time in a deep select before he walks back into the lava. Oh no, no, Dreamers! It's not looking too hot! Or maybe it is, because the lava, you know?
Yeah, I was about to say. and LEAMICS also warming up tremendously on that one. That was 2 ults from Dreamers, and realistically, not a ton from LEAMICS in response. The Graviton Surge had no way to be followed up on, and on top of all of this, LEAMICS, despite being on the periphery of the objective, still managed to kite Dreamers into small corridors where they could give advantage to Soki-chan and Impure.
Dreamers are gonna play fast though. They've got the sound barrier. Oh, and the deflect damage there is so much. Ant Matrix not quite enough, and Taylor gets his head ripped off by Sad. LEAMICS trying to hold on for as much percentage as they can. If they can pull one more ult out here, that'd be fantastic, but no, they fall apart before that happens.
This is that's just an experience fight from Dreamers. Go real quick. LEAMICS.
They didn't even have to beat.
They did not even have to beat. The other thing too is LEAMICS. I mean, we saw that first deflect where Jasmine beamed down, Soki-chan on the approach, not respecting the damage throughput that can come in. And when you have that, right, you can set up for the Ant Matrix, and no one can kind of clean up. I like this forward position from Dreamers. They don't want to let LEAMICS get into the open where the Captive Sun can actually be able to hit multiple members.
This is a really awkward long rotation. We talked about how slow this composition is. The Dreamers taking that forward position, forcing LEAMICS to reroute entirely, basically circumnavigate the entire map before they get back to the objective. I mean, Dreamers, if they win this fight slow enough, they won't have to win a second on this objective. Ant Matrix stalls out more and more time and gives Jasmine and Top Dragon a chance to build up toward their ults. Jasmine 100 charge and a grab in his pocket. That's hard to push into for LEAMICS.
I mean, you can see they have to make an approach, but there's no opening, there's no entryway.
Jasmine's ready to grab. He finds Taylor lagging behind just a little bit. Grace and Soki-chan not able to double back for him, and that beam goes straight through the javelin spin. We're tied up after our first 2 points of Flashpoint.
Ooh, Impure, a very delayed pick means that, again, this is going to be, despite this being on the opposite end of the map, it is not going to be a favorable approach for LEAMICS, as they have to wait for Impure to reset.
The bonus for LEAMICS here is that this is Palace, and there's a lot of high ground circling the objective, and they're playing a very poke-heavy composition, right? It's hard for Dreamers to push out of Palace on top of them. The bad part is that means Dreamers are going to get the objective first, probably, unless LEAMICS pull off something pretty quick here. Top Dragon already trying to lock them out, not give them access to that high ground. That would really activate their composition. Here comes the blade. One down. Is this the blade we've been waiting for? Maybe not the super blade we've seen from Top Dragon in the past, but it's clean enough. We'll give it to him. Nicely done.
All right, and this is feeling where it's starting to, I feel, crumble a little bit for LEAMICS on this map, because despite Dreamers, they had clear faults on that market position where they were just trying to play their hand a little too carefully, try and be a little too cautious. Now they're actually putting resources into the Genji, who can get in, put pressure down, and LEAMICS have no time to use their resources. All this also just opens up Sod in the backline.
I love these aggressive Ant Matrices. So well done by Dreamers here. And this is the coordinated aggression that we've been waiting for. Piece by piece, they dismantle LEAMICS on their approach.
Now this is, and I mean, we'll have to see how this goes further in Dreamers in their future games, but this is the team we expected to see. This is the performance we expected to see.
Absolutely, and now, I mean, it feels like Dreamers, they're pushed all the way to the spawn! Oh, Dreamers, once they get in the groove, there is no pulling them out of it. 100-0 on point number 3. And one more chance for LEAMICS to try and extend this series beyond Saravasa. A tough rotation to Gardens, too. Yeah, they were really hoping it was not going to end up there.
Oh, that's so unlucky. And I mean, now also the Graviton Surge, and because Dreamers have won these last couple of fights so consistently, Jasmine actually gets energy to do something with this Graviton Surge for what feels like the first time all series long.
Look at these nightmarish angles you have to push into. I mean, you'd think these are advantageous for LEAMICS, but even though they're running a more poke-heavy composition, you don't want to push into long angles, even with that. Captive Sun here trying to get rid of Top Dragon. It gets cleansed off by the Zarya bubble, though. Some little interaction there. Soki-chan's down, and here comes yet another blade. Top Dragon one day, he'll find his target immediately, but he'll convert pretty well onto a second one. Nicely done there, and he'll chase down Taylor. Get Dreamers a comfortable first fight.
Cheap fight, too. I mean, Dragon Blade, we've complained about its efficacy all series long, so the fact that it's the only thing you need to close this one out means that in what is going to be essentially the last real fight of this point, LEAMICS haven't really forced Dreamers to empty the bank, right? And I mean, we talk about ultimate. Oh wow, okay, just running them. Bye.
Okay, this series has been a tale of two Dreamers thus far, right? We have the Dreamers of like control and the first point and a half of this map where it's been difficult, it's been discoordinated, and then we have that Dreamers, which just runs at LEAMICS, rolls them over, absolutely no chance. Top Dragon's getting a bubble to ensure that, well, I guess I can't call it a 1v1, but there's just simply no hope for LEAMICS. Not when Dreamers are online like this. Grace will give them a stationary target to shoot at as the Overwatch, or the overtime wick. There we go. I guess it's an Overwatch wick as well. It burns away either way. And it's Dreamers with a 3-0.
Couple of emotes and celebratory ultimates at the end there for Dreamers. Wow. Well, this actually has more questions for me than answers. Which Dreamers? Dreamers won 3-0, and yet I'm wondering at the end of it, which Dreamers do we see next?
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Certainly an interesting return to Contenders Korea for Dreamers, but it's a 3-0 either way. So, you know, again, LaFawn, you and I are very picky. Especially when it comes to our teams that we expect to perform as the best of the best here in Contenders Korea. But Dreamers, safe to say, they earned this win.
And I mean, this is an excellent welcome to Jasmine, too, right, into this roster.
For sure.
Very large shoes to fill, right?
I mean, you think about Liga in a Zarya meta? Yeah, pretty big. We're talking some, I don't like some Fezzik the Giant size shoes, right?
All right, tremendous stuff. And it felt like as the game went on, we saw a more coordinated Dreamers, right? Where earlier on we had critiques about, you know, where the bubbles were being used, why they were. Jasmine caught out on islands a lot of the time. Towards the end, I didn't have those concerns. I really like 3 of those grabs that happened where you just kind of run players down. Let's take a look, though, at our player of the match. And stability was the name of the game for this one, I think, because Saad was just consistent all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the growing pains for this roster as they adapt to a new tank, as they adapt to a new meta. Saad had none of those. He was not in pain at all this entire series. I think Empire got the better of him once on the very first map, and otherwise Saad was just lights out, doing a phenomenal job. So consistent, and with such important picks too. I mean, getting rid of the Baptiste there, that's what allows Dreamers to push along that side corridor, right?
Yeah.
Like, if Taylor's still up, you don't want to do that because the reposition is going to be brutal for you. And Saad also the driving force in a lot of these engagements too, right? I mean, you know, we talk about the Top Dragon Blades, we look at it because we love Genji gameplay, it's very flashy, but Saad is the one pumping in consistent damage when Top Dragon was 50-50 on his blades.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, talking about a moment, it's not a kill, but on the first map where single-handedly Saad holds down a turret form Bastion through a window, and all of LEAMICS kind of backs up, right? That's the outsized impact, even if it's not the flashiest one from the Sojourn. So Saad, a player that you and I have seen grow over the last year to kind of include the hit scan prowess, and I mean, I'm really curious to see how well he kind of continues this excellence as he moves further into Contenders this season. Again, having returned from the Al knockouts.
Yeah, and for LEAMICS on the other side of things, it's been a little bit of a tough start for their group stage, right? They're 0-2 in matches, they're 0-6 in maps. But I think now that you've gotten Dreamers out of the way, and that it was admittedly more competitive than I would have expected going into this season, I don't think you can be too upset about how the first couple of matches have played out. There's still 3 more to play. You still have a chance to get your way into that. You just gotta get third.
Yes.
You gotta be middle of the pack in the group, right? Yeah. And then you'll get to playoffs, and you'll have an extra week to sort of download and figure out what you really want to do. It feels like LEAMICS still have to download a little bit. We've seen quite a number of propositions from them over the last few days, but they'll have plenty of time before their next match. You won't, though. Not before our next match that we're going to show here. We got one more for you when we come back from this quick break.